How's it going, Rogues Gallery? The latest Grand Archive set has now been out for a little while, and I figured it's about time to do a deck tech featuring one of the brand new champions. One of my absolute favorites, actually, Diana, the Ranger. Look, she's so cool. So today we're gonna do a deck tech featuring Diana. This is the Water Allies version of the deck that you may have seen putting up some really good top results at some recent Grand Archive events. I myself am actually about to leave to do casting and coverage at the North American Nationals, and you know what? I hope we see some sweet Diana action. So let's get on with the deck tech. Let's do it. All right, so this deck essentially plays like a mid-range allies deck, and honestly, it's a ton of fun. It is just right up my alley. It is mostly water, and by that I mean it is entirely water. We are not relying on the Umbra element at all, but we'll talk about that as we discuss the deck. I do want to mention one thing before we get started though. I always forget to shout them out, but hey, I want to give a big shout out to Dragon Shield. I am a Dragon Shield affiliate, and they are my sleeves of choice, and yo, check it out. They actually have Grand Archive sleeves, which are really, really cool. These sleeves are not available on the Dragon Shield store, but you can find these at your local game store, which is really, really cool. What you can find on their store are dual matte sleeves, the kind of sleeves that have the black inside and then the colored outside, and they just feel, oh dude, they feel so good. So highly recommended. I do have an affiliate link in the description down below. If you use that link and type in Rogue5 at checkout, you get 5% off your entire order. So hey, if you want to buy Dragon Shields at all, use my link, type in Rogue5, 5% off. Win-win, right? Anyway, enough of that. I just wanted to mention it because they're literally the sleeves that I use for every single card game that I play. So let's kind of take the deck. We're not taking it apart, but we're going to kind of set parts of it aside so we can talk about it a little bit more piecemeal, because we have some things to say. So I think the easiest place to start is with the material deck. Now, I will have a deck list in the description down below, but before you click on that, I want to say two things. First of all, hey, please watch the video for, well, one, the engagement, and you know, it helps push Grand Archive videos to be more prevalent on YouTube so we can help grow the game, and it's a nice little, you know, feeding cycle. But also, hey, I'm talking about why the cards are in the deck. So deck list down below, but also we have the deck here. This list is not my own 100% brew. I have, you know, taken it from some other tournament winners because I wanted to play a good version of this deck. So, yeah. All right, so our champion is Diana, right? We are playing water. We are not playing the Serene Spirit of Water because we just don't really care about that. We just want the max 7 cards. This is a mid-range deck, but we do plan on killing our opponent by attacking them. We have our level 1 Diana, just really great to materialize a gun card, usually on your level 2 because you have to lineage release her. So what you'll basically do is you'll go to level 1, do whatever you're doing on your turn, and then once you go to level 2, you will materialize a bullet, and then usually lineage release and get a gun too. So you have a gun, a bullet, and ranged 2, which is really, really nice. So if you can give her distant, you can have a really, really nice big attack turn. Keep in mind that range 2 is inherited, so when you go up to level 3, that you keep that effect, which is great. And then on level 3, when you enter, she becomes distant, so she gets that +2 from the range 2. And then on champion hit, you generate a creeping torment and put it in the bottom of the hit champion's lineage, which is really, really sweet. And we do want to do that. You do want to get, you know, a good amount of creeping torments so you can do that. And hey, what's a creeping torment? Just in case you don't know. Creeping torment is a 1-drop. Doesn't really matter for the cost for this deck because we're just going to be generating it and it's going to go straight into our opponent's lineage. And it says, inherited effect, when you draw your second card each turn, deal 2 unpreventable damage to this object. So we stick it in our opponent's lineage, and whenever they draw 2 cards, or the second card, they take 2 damage, and then it stacks up. So if they have 5 of them, they draw 2 cards, they'll take 10 damage, right? So this is a good way to have some sort of inevitability on our opponent, and it really punishes decks that like to draw a lot of cards, which is almost every single deck in Grand Archive. So really, really solid way to close out the game, supplemented by all of our other annoying crap that we're going to be doing. Keep in mind though, for cards that are generated from effects like Diana, you have to have them in the same sleeves as your main deck just in case they move zones or anything like that. These are not tokens, they are generated. There is a difference, so keep that in mind when you're building your deck. Sleeve them up in the same sleeves as your main deck. Your material deck can be different sleeves. All right, so let's talk about the rest of the material deck. We have GCR, Grand Crusader's Ring. This is great. We don't want to do any Grail shenanigans, so just having this ring to draw an extra card is really, really good. We have Prototype Pistol. We have a couple guns in the deck, and then a couple bullets in the deck. So for the guns, Prototype Pistol is just a really, really efficient one. It has 3 durability, and when it enters, it gets +1 for the turn, so you can just deal a bunch of damage the turn that this comes into play, and it has 3 durability, so you can use it many times. Seeker's Rifle is really resilient because it has Spell Shroud, so if your opponent's going to be doing shenanigans, like blowing up your gun, then Seeker's Rifle is the good option on that. It only has 2 durability, but you do have a way to get bullets back. On kill, you can pay 2 if you do materialize a bullet card from your material deck, which isn't nothing. So if you have those extra cards in your hand, you're not going to use them for anything else, you can get an extra bullet. Speaking of which, we have Taser Shot and Cascading Round. These are our 2 bullets of choice. Taser Shot is just a nasty bullet. It has renewable, so after you use it, it goes back into your material deck, so you can keep using it. And it says, on champion hit, until the beginning of your next turn, whenever the hit champion levels up, deal 4 unpreventable damage to them. So this is just a lot of damage, and this is going to be supplemented by our Staff of Lumina, which I don't have a physical copy of because it's a Praxia's Vault card. We'll talk about that in a second. But yes, Taser Shot, super, super solid. And then also Cascading Round is also super, super solid. Really good to get after your opponent's leveled up, or if you don't think they're going to be leveling up, because this does 2 damage. Really good, has renewable, really good. And on hit, the top card of your deck into your graveyard. So this can help get some floating memory kind of shenanigans. We are running a decent amount of floating memory in the deck. Not too much, we're running 12, but it can come up. We are running our good old Frostworn Paladin lady there. All right, we have a couple other cards. These are a little bit more situational, but just really good. Terrafring, amazing card against aggro and ally decks. We have Viridian Protective Trinket, an amazing card against opposing water element decks, which is a lot these days. Usually it's a fire-water meta right now, but you know, this is one of the cards. In fact, these 2 are some of the cards we swap out more often than not. And then this Cloak of Stillwater. This is really a Staff of Lumina. You can print out your own version because it's a Praxia's Vault. I plan on getting an actual version, at the North American Nationals, as well as all the other Praxia's Vault cards. But yes, this is a Staff of Lumina, and a Staff of Lumina is just a really good card that helps us kill our opponent. You want to get it early, and you want to level up your champion to maximize that damage to a total of about 12 damage against your opponent. Really solid, and in the late game, you can draw some cards. So yeah, Staff of Lumina, really, really solid. All right, let's go over our, do you want to do sideboard first or last? Honestly, it doesn't matter either way. We'll do sideboard last. Let's talk about the main deck, and then we'll talk about our sideboard options. There's just not a ton of sideboard options, but the main deck itself is actually quite simple. This is a Water Allies deck, and as you would guess, we are running a ton of allies. We are also a Ranger deck, so we do care about ranged and distant, but not a ton. So the biggest strength of this deck, as with almost all water decks, is we get to use the most powerful allies in the entire game, in my opinion, such as Frostworn Paladin, a 3-drop 2/3 that becomes a 3/4 and draws you a card. If you banish a card with floating memory from your graveyard, is insanely strong. One of the best allies in the entire game. A 3/4 for 3 that draws you a card is nuts. Oh, it also has Intercept too, just in case. And then similarly, we have Gildas. Gildas is one of the most powerful allies as well because she's essentially a 4/3 for 3. You have to maintain that balance, but between drawing cards and a lot of other shenanigans, you can do that. You always want to play around your turn with your Gildas. She's a little bit tricky to use, but once you kind of get the hang of it, she's not too bad. Gildas is just really, really powerful. Now we have a bunch of other just kind of like what I'd call like 2/3s for 3. We have the Lurking Assailant. You see this in almost every single ally deck these days. He's really simple. He's a 3-drop 2/3. He has stealth as long as he's awake, so it's really hard to attack into. And if you're level 1+, he can retaliate against any other attackers while not defending, which is really good. So you can just add damage in on whatever your opponent is doing. So we're running a playset of them. A new card, we have the Sea Sprite Diver. This is essentially a 2/3 for 3. It says it costs 4, but if our opponent has 4 more cards in their graveyard, it costs 1 less to activate. And then on enter, banish a card in a graveyard. So this is just kind of like a bigger raccoon, right? For 1 more resource, it's a 2/3, and we just kind of want to have that strong board presence. Also, it's very pretty. We have more new cards with, you know what, let's lump all of the ranged cards together. So we have 3 different allies that have ranged. We have the Crystalline Archer. It's a 1/2 with ranged 3. And then on attack, you can banish a card with floating memory from your graveyard. If you do, you draw a card and he becomes distant. This is a really, really sweet card. I wouldn't say it's that similar to the Frostwind Paladin, but it's close, right? It draws a card, gets that extra pump, so it becomes a 4/2. Yeah, really good. We're not, like I said, we're not running a ton of floating memory in the deck, but we have 12. We have 12. Running 3 of the Archer Buddy there. But yeah, like a 2-drop, deal 4 damage. Really good. We also have Trained Sharpshooter. Very simple card. She's a 3-drop, 2/3 with range 2. So if you can give her distance, she becomes a 4/3. Really, really solid. She becomes a Gildas. This card's incredible. And then finally for our ranged, we have Airship Cruiser. He is a 1/3 for 3, so similar stat lines to the Trained Sharpshooter, a little bit weaker, but he has floating memory, which is really good. So we're running a full playset of him. And so, you know, this is one of our floating memory cards that also doubles as a decent threat that can fuel our Crusty Archer or our Paladin. All right, let's show off some more controlling allies. We have Lunette, Frostbinder Priest, one of my favorite cards from Dawn of Ashes. She's a 3-drop, 1/1. If you have balance, she's a 1/4, which is really, really hard to deal with. And if she says all your opponents, or allies your opponents control, enter the field rested. I got the all part a little, you know, convoluted there. But yes, she just slows down the game for your opponents. So she's really, really good against wind allies decks, against water allies decks, against the fire aggro deck. She's really good in the meta right now. So we're running 3 of her. She is a unique ally, so you can only have 1 of them out on the field at a time. Another controlling ally is the Snow Fairy, one that I liked enough that I ended up buying a playset of the promo version before she was like a meta card like she is right now. So she's a 3-drop, 1/2. She has stealth, and on enter, rest an ally you don't control. That ally doesn't wake up as long as you control Snow Fairy. So basically, she locks something down, and she has stealth, so she's just really, really hard to deal with outside of direct removal or true sight. Another controlling ally that you see in a lot of decks these days, you have the Korhazi Trapper, a 1/3 for 3. On enter, put a prep counter on your champion. You can do that. That doesn't have to be assassin. And you can activate and remove a prep counter from your champion. Target unit attacks gets -3 until end of turn. And that's all of their attacks get -3. So if they have some sort of shenanigans to attack with their champion and wake it up and then attack it again, doesn't matter. They all get -3 for the turn. Really, really good way to slow down the game. And then, of course, we have your Dungeon Guide, running a full set of the Dungeon Guides because, hey, it's Dungeon Guide and we actually want to level up our champion in this deck. Even though we don't really care about the Umbra element, getting to Diana level 3 and start putting those Creeping Torments in our opponent's lineage is just really, really good. All right, so those are the allies. Let's talk about some of our non-ally cards. We have a little suite of cards that give us distant. Evasive Maneuvers is a pretty chill one. It's just a 1-drop, prevent the next 2 damage to be dealt to target unit this turn. If that unit is a ranger, it becomes distant, which is really sweet. That can work on our champion or on any of the other cards that have distant because they are all rangers, which is really, really sweet. So yeah, prevent some damage, get distant, and then Crundle on in. We have 3 of these. And then we have Reposition. This card is amazing. This is a 1-drop, target unit becomes distant, and then it has floating memory. So this is another one of our floating memory cards. We're running a full playset of these. Really, really great card for this deck. And now we have some more controlling element cards. We have Frostbind. This is our counter spell. It's a 2-drop. You basically counter or negate target card activation unless its controller pays 2, and then you banish that card. So if you can do that against something that has floating memory, it gets banished, which is like a extra insult to injury. Running a full playset of those. We're running Song of Frost. This is kind of like a fog effect. It's a 2-drop. It has an alternate cost, but we're not Tamer, so we don't get to do the alternate cost. But it just says if a unit is attacking, end the combat phase. really, really good. You're attacking me with something big? No. No, you're not. No, you're not. It says, as the phase ends, banish all triggers, activations, and materializations on the effects stack, which is really nice. And then the final card in our main deck is our final floating memory card. It's Fracturize. This is a nice little catch-all card. It just says, target item or weapon becomes a Cleric Fractal Fantasia with reservable and loses all other abilities, and it has floating memory. So one of our floating memory cards, but also just a great way to, like, you're playing Erendite? No, you're not. Your Erendite is now a Fractal, or, you know, whatever else they're doing. So just a really solid kind of catch-all card with floating memory. All right, so that is our main deck, and as you can see, we are a mid-range deck, right? We just want to kind of control the board with, you know, controlling allies, strong, you know, efficiently statted allies, or allies that are just really, really good. They just kill your opponent. Backed up by, you know, removal, controlling effects, and all that kind of good stuff. For our sideboard, we have some very specific stuff. So we have 3 Freezing Hail in our sideboard. It's just really good at keeping a unit locked down. It does 2 damage to a unit, and then that unit doesn't wake up during its next wake up phase. And so we're just running 3, just good to kill, or good to lock down a unit, or kill stuff if you need more removal. And then we have some stuff for our material deck. The easiest one is one of each of the baubles. So I think this is kind of a slam dunk in most Grand Archive decks, just to have these in your sideboard, and you just side in whatever one your opponent is playing. Simple, just becomes an extra Grand Crusader's Ring, which is really, really good. I basically run this in all of my Grand Archive decks. We have the Quick Draw Piercer, which I think is really good against longer, grindier matchups. It's a 1/2. So it only has 2 durability, it only attacks for 1, but on Banish you get a draw card. So this will give you a little bit of advantage over time, and I think it's a little bit better against games that tend to go long. And then Blast Shot Pump is insanely good against other allied decks because it basically cleaves, right? It only has 2 durability, only does 1 damage, but it says if combat damage will be dealt to a unit by an attack using Blast Shot Pump, it's dealt to that unit and then another one that you don't control as well. Really, really solid. Like clearing up some units, and you combine that with your big damage bullet, the Cascading Round, because the Cascading Round has 2, so you can essentially do 3 damage or 5 damage if you're distant, or rather distant, with Diana 2 plus. So you can do some good stuff there. And yeah, that's essentially our Water Diana allies list. This deck is super, super fun. I have seen other versions that go much heavier into Umbra, and they run a lot of like fancy Umbra cards, and I'll be honest, I just don't own all the copies of the Umbra cards to make that list. But I think this list in particular is very, very fun and definitely worth checking out. So yeah, if you want to play Diana and don't really want to deal with a lot of the Umbra shenanigans, this is a good option. And hey, the deck is really, really solid. So let me know what you think of the deck in the comments down below. Let me know if you are running any other versions of Diana. I really want to do like a Fire Diana, for example. And thanks for watching. I appreciate the support on the Grand Archive content. It means a lot. And we'll see you next time. Good job, pretty shoes. Well, look at the eyes. All right.